The sun was nearly gone behind the red dunes when Elias Ward stepped out of his workshop and looked toward the horizon. A storm was building again. He could smell the static in the air and hear the thin whistle of wind dancing across the sand. This world, New Bastion, never gave anyone a quiet day. It was a tough planet for tough people. And Elias had learned to survive its moods the same way he survived everything else in his life, alone, steady, and prepared. He wiped the dust off his metal gloves and checked the power cells on his perimeter lights. They flickered weakly, then brightened as the small generator hummed to life. Good. Another night alone. Another storm handled. That was the routine he liked, but that evening refused to stay quiet. At first, he thought the sound was just the wind shifting direction, a strange cry carried by the distant gusts. But then it came again, closer, shakier. Too alive to be the desert, someone was calling out. Someone was struggling. Elias stiffened. Out here on the outskirts of the settlement, no one simply wandered. If someone came this way, it usually meant trouble. He reached for his old pulse carbine, its weight familiar in his hands. He walked toward the sound, boots sinking slightly into the soft sand. His eyes scanned the growing shadows. Careful. Alert. A soldier's habits never faded. Then he saw her. A figure collapsed near the side fence, half covered by drifting sand. Elias stopped several meters away and tightened his grip on the weapon. The person was small, thin, shaking, and definitely not human. Her skin was pale silver with faint lines glowing along her arms, like soft blue circuits pulsing beneath the surface. Her dark hair hung in wild tangles, and her eyes, large, reflective, almost too bright, looked up at him with a mixture of fear and hope. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Shelter. Please." Elias lowered the barrel slightly but did not relax. The settlement had been tense for months. Refugees from crashed alien ships kept arriving, and many humans had grown suspicious of them. The colony wasn't cruel, but fear had been moving through it like poison. He stepped closer. "You're injured," he said. "How far did you walk?" Her breath came in short, painful bursts. "From the settlement, door to door. No one would let me stay." She swallowed hard, her throat dry from the sand. "I asked for protection. I offered the pact bond, but they turned me away." Elias frowned. "The what?" She struggled to sit up. "In my people's law, a pact bond is a pledge of mutual shelter. A vow made only in emergencies. We speak it when we have no home left. I told them I would act as their wife." "In your words?" Her voice broke slightly. "It does not mean affection. It means protection, safety, a promise of peace. But they misunderstood and sent me out." Elias exhaled slowly. The phrase must have frightened the settlers. Humans had a habit of assuming the worst when they did not understand. Another gust of wind blew sand into her face. She coughed weakly. He holstered his weapon. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried, but her leg buckled. Without thinking, Elias caught her by the arm. She was lighter than he expected. Fragile from exhaustion, he thought for a moment. Taking her in could draw attention. The settlement council had already warned people not to house refugees without checking their backgrounds. But leaving her outside was not an option, not with the storm rolling in and night approaching. "All right," he said at last. "Come inside. I'll look at your injuries." Her eyes widened with relief, glowing a bit brighter. "Thank you, human." "My name's Elias," he corrected, supporting her as they walked. "What's yours?" "Saren," she murmured. "Saren Kavala." Inside the homestead, Elias guided her to the small table in the corner. The room was plain, but solid metal walls, a patched ceiling, shelves full of tools, a narrow bed against one wall. She looked around with quiet curiosity, as if memorizing everything. Elias fetched the medkit and began cleaning the cut on her forehead. Saren winced, but didn't pull away. "You're lucky," he said. "If you'd stayed out there another hour, the storm would have buried you. I had nowhere else to go." Her voice was soft, steadying now that she was safe inside. "I thought the settlement would understand. Our customs are different, but our intentions were peaceful." "Asking people to be your wife for shelter?" Elias raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, they weren't going to take that well." She shook her head. "In our tongue, the bond is a survival pact, a promise to protect each other from danger. It is not romantic. It is not intimate. It is simply a shield, a pledge that neither will betray the other." She paused. "Humans use the word wife, so I tried to speak your language, but I see now it was the wrong translation." Elias nodded slowly. "Well, at least you're safe here for now. You don't owe me any vows." Saren bowed her head. "Still, I am in your debt. According to my culture, I owe protection to the one who gives me shelter. I will honor that." He didn't argue. He could see that her words were not dramatic, they were sincere, almost solemn. Whatever that bond meant to her people, it was serious. He finished bandaging her wound, then checked her leg. "Nothing broken," he said. "Just strained. Rest will fix it." Saren let out a trembling breath of relief. "Thank you, Elias." "You hungry?" She hesitated. "If you have food to spare." He heated a ration packet and set it in front of her. As she ate small, careful bites, Elias studied her. She looked young but not a child. Her posture was disciplined, her movements deliberate despite her exhaustion. Not just a refugee, someone trained, someone educated. "You came from the crashed convoy outside the Western Canyons?" he asked. Her shoulders tightened. "Yes." "What happened?" Saren stopped eating. Her glowing eyes lowered. "We were attacked." Elias waited, but she didn't continue. "By who?" he asked gently. I cannot say yet." Her hands trembled slightly. "But they will follow me. And when they do, they will not stop at the settlement. They will burn everything to reach me." Elias felt a cold weight settle in his chest. So she was running from more than hunger and loneliness. There was danger following her, real danger. He walked to the window and looked out. The wind was rising. The storm clouds had swallowed the last light. Sand pattered against the metal walls like distant gunfire. "You're safe for tonight," he said without turning. "We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." Behind him, Saren nodded. "I am grateful. Truly. Later, after he set up an extra blanket and checked the locks, Elias sat by the workshop table pretending to fix an old power clamp, but he wasn't really working. His mind kept replaying the scene of her collapsing by his fence, kept circling around her, warning. Someone dangerous wanted her, and now she was in his home. But Elias Ward had never turned away someone in need, not in the war, not after, not now. If danger came, he would face it. Humans were stubborn like that. Humans stood their ground. Across the room, Saren watched him quietly, her glowing eyes softer now, no longer full of fear but something closer to trust. Outside, the storm hit the homestead in full force, rattling the walls with its fury. Inside, two strangers, one human, one alien, waited out the darkness together, unaware that their uneasy meeting was only the beginning of something far larger than either of them understood. Morning came quietly after the long night of storm winds. The sun rose over the dunes like a pale red coin, its light washing across the homestead in gentle waves. Elias Ward stepped out onto the sand to check the damage. The storm had pushed half a dune against the outer fence, and a few solar panels were coated in dust, but nothing was broken. He had seen worse. Inside the house, Saren sat at the table with her hands folded neatly in front of her. She had woken early, but she waited for Elias to return before moving around too much. Her glowing eyes followed him as he brushed sand from his sleeves and set his tools down. "You survived the night," Elias said with a small, tired smile. "And your home survived the storm." Saren stood up slowly, testing her leg. She winced but managed to stay upright. "Thank you for allowing me to rest here. It was the right thing to do." "Breakfast?" Elias asked. She nodded politely. "If you have enough." He opened a ration pack and placed it in front of her. Saren ate quietly but efficiently. like someone trained to conserve energy. Elias leaned against the counter and watched her for a moment. The silence between them was not uncomfortable, more like two strangers trying to understand the shape of each other's presence. After she finished eating, Saren stood again, straighter this time. "I would like to help," she said. "Your home sheltered me. I must repay this." "You don't owe me anything," Elias replied. Her expression tightened slightly, not in anger but in determination. "According to my culture, I do. I cannot sit here while you work. Let me assist in whatever ways I can." Elias scratched his beard, unsure. He wasn't used to having company, much less help. But he also knew refusing her would make her feel dishonored. And he didn't want to disrespect her beliefs. "All right," he agreed. "Let's see what you can do." Saren followed him outside. The morning sun reflected off her silver skin, and the faint blue lines beneath her surface pulsed gently. She looked fragile at first glance, but something about her movements felt precise, almost disciplined. Elias pointed to the half-buried fence. "We need to clear the sand and reinforce those posts before the next storm hits." "And another?" Saren nodded. "I can do that." She knelt beside the mound, placing her hand on the sand. The lines on her arm brightened, and Elias felt a faint vibration in the ground. Slowly, the sand shifted aside, sliding away from the fence as if it were being pulled by invisible hands. Elias stared in surprise. "How did you do that?" "It is a small gravity pulse," Saren explained, as if it were nothing special. "Our bodies produce them naturally. We use them to move stone or shape metal. It is not strong, but it helps." "Well," Elias said, folding his arms, "that's certainly useful." Saren gave a tiny, proud smile. "I am glad." They spent the morning working together, Elias repairing the fence posts, and Saren clearing the sand or lifting heavier tools when asked. She was careful never to overstep, never to act without his permission. But she focused on every task with serious dedication. By noon, the homestead looked almost untouched by the storm. "Good work," Elias said. Saren dipped her head. "Thank you. It feels good to contribute." They returned inside to rest. But the moment Elias opened the door, a sharp, metallic chime echoed from the small communicator mounted on the wall. The screen flickered to life with a message from settlement security. "All settlers. Report any unregistered refugees. Strict orders from council." Elias felt the hair on the back of his neck rise. Saren watched the message too. She didn't move, but the glow in her eyes dimmed slightly. "They are looking for me." "Seems so," Elias muttered. He shut the communicator off before another message could appear. "They fear us," Saren said softly. "Or they fear what follows us." Elias turned toward her. "You said you were attacked. You said they'd come for you. Who are they?" "Saren?" She hesitated for a long moment, her hands clasping tightly together. "My people are divided," she finally said, "not by blood, but by belief. Some wish to live in peace with other species. Others believe knowledge must be controlled violently, if necessary. And you? I am from a house that carries ancient records, things lost by many civilizations. One of those records contains information that a hostile faction wants to hide." She looked down. "I escaped with it." Elias let out a slow breath. So she wasn't just a refugee, she was someone important. Someone hunted. "What kind of information?" he asked. "I cannot tell you yet," she said gently. "Not because I do not trust you, but because it is dangerous even to speak of. The less you know, the safer you are." Elias walked to the window and stared at the settlement's distant outline. For years, he had chosen a quiet life, away from battles and politics. But danger had walked right up to his fence last night and collapsed at his door. "We need a plan," he said. Saren stepped up beside him, her posture tense. "If you want me to leave, I will. I do not wish to bring trouble to your home." "You're not going anywhere," Elias replied firmly. "Not until you're safe." Before Saren could answer, the sound of engines grew louder outside. Elias grabbed his carbine and peered out the window. A dust-covered transport hovered into view, carrying 4 armed settlers. They weren't soldiers, just civilians with rifles and angry expressions. "They're coming," Elias muttered. "Stay behind me." Saren obeyed without argument. A fist banged on the door. "Elias Ward, open up." Elias opened the door just enough to step out, keeping Saren hidden inside. The leader, a tall man with a scruffy beard, glared at him. "Ward, we got reports someone saw you bring in an alien last night." Elias didn't flinch. "I found someone injured near my fence. That's all. We need to see her," the man insisted. "The council is worried some refugees are spies. You, handing her over, will avoid trouble." Elias leaned against the doorframe. "She's not a spy. She's hurt. And this is my property." The man stepped closer. "If you're hiding her, you're putting all of us at risk. We're not asking." "Ward." Elias's jaw tightened. "Then I'm not answering." The settlers exchanged uneasy looks. They knew Elias's background: former soldier, excellent shot. Not easily intimidated. Still, fear made people bold. The leader tried again, voice harder. "Ward, don't protect her. She's not one of us." Elias's eyes sharpened. "She's someone who needed help." "That's enough," the man cursed under his breath. Finally, he waved to the others. "Fine, but we'll be back. And if something happens because of her, it's on your head." The transport lifted, kicking sand into Elias's face before speeding toward the settlement. When he went back inside, Saren was standing stiffly near the wall. She had heard everything. "You should not have defended me," she said quietly. "Not against your own people." "Doesn't matter," Elias replied. "You were right about one thing: they're scared. That makes them dangerous. And to help me." Saren looked at him with a mixture of respect and sorrow. "That makes you even more vulnerable." Elias sat down at the table, rubbing his temples. "Maybe, but I'm not abandoning you." She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, the glow in them was steadier, stronger. "In that case," she said, "the pact bond stands. I will protect you, as you have protected me." Elias chuckled softly. "You don't have to keep reminding me." "I am not reminding you," Saren replied. "I am promising." Outside, the wind began to rise again, carrying whispers of trouble on the horizon. Inside, Elias and Saren prepared themselves, knowing the next storm would not be made of sand. The next 2 days passed slowly, as if the desert were holding its breath. Elias spent his mornings repairing equipment and checking the perimeter, while Saren helped with quiet dedication. She moved carefully, still healing. But she insisted on contributing. When she rested, she studied the horizon with wary eyes, as though expecting danger to rise from the sands at any moment. On the third morning, Elias woke before dawn and found Saren standing outside. Her face turned toward the faint glow of the coming sunrise. The blue lines under her skin pulsed with a gentle rhythm. "You okay?" Elias asked, stepping beside her. She nodded. "I sense movement to the east. Not human. A large group." "Are you sure?" "Yes. My people can feel certain vibrations in the ground. It is a skill we develop from birth." She paused, her voice tightening. "They are coming." Elias felt the familiar weight of tension settle over him, the old soldier inside him stirring, sharpening. He walked to his workshop and checked his weapons. His carbine was charged. His emergency EMP grenades were in good condition. His handheld scanner was functioning. Saren watched him quietly. "They will not attack from afar," she said. "They prefer close strikes. They want the record I carry. They want silence." "You said you escaped with something important," Elias reminded her. "You don't have to tell me everything. But right now, I need to know what we're dealing with." Saren breathed deeply. "The record I carry is not an object. It is information inside my mind. A memory crystal encoded into my neural pathways. It contains ancient star maps, forgotten weapon designs, and histories of many species. Some of it is harmless, but some—" she hesitated. "Some could end entire civilizations if placed in the wrong hands." Elias's grip tightened around his tools. "And the group chasing you wants to control it." "Yes," Saren said softly. They believe knowledge should stay within the strongest. They believe other species, including humans, should never learn what the record holds. So, if they catch you, they will erase the knowledge by erasing me. The air between them went cold. Elias stepped outside and scanned the desert. We need to leave. Staying here will only paint a target on the settlement. Saren agreed with a nod. We should move through the canyons. The rock formations can hide our tracks. There is a place my people found long ago, a small bunker built during the collapse era. It might help us. Then pack whatever you can carry, Elias said. We're leaving in 10 minutes. Saren moved quickly, gathering only essentials, a cloak, a water flask, and the small silver device she used to manipulate gravity. Elias packed ammunition, tools, food packets, and a portable generator. When everything was ready, they slipped out behind the homestead and headed toward the canyon paths. The journey was long and harsh. The sun beat down with punishing heat, and the wind carried fine sand that clung to their clothes. Saren occasionally used her gravity pulses to lift rocks or clear narrow paths, saving them valuable energy. By midday, they reached the mouth of the canyon. Huge stone walls rose on either side like ancient guardians. Their shadows provided relief from the sun. But the silence felt heavier here, thick. Watching. We must stay alert, Saren whispered. The enemy hunts with sound, not sight. You know, Elias said, keeping his carbine raised. That's not very comforting. They pressed deeper into the canyon, moving between jagged cliffs and winding paths. At times, the wind felt wrong, too quiet, too careful. Elias could sense danger the way he once had on battlefields. After several hours, Saren pointed toward a crack in the stone. There, hidden behind the wall, was a small hatch covered in dust and vines. Elias brushed it off and found a faded symbol burned into the metal, an old human military emblem. You said your people found this? Elias asked. Yes, Saren replied. They studied its structure but did not break its seal. They feared triggering ancient defenses. Elias knelt beside the hatch and examined the locking mechanism. This was made centuries ago. But I think I can open it. He worked quickly with his tools, tightening screws and rewiring the old circuits. Layers of dust sprinkled around him. Finally, with a metallic click, the hatch swung open. Inside was a narrow stairway leading into darkness. Saren followed him carefully as they descended. The air grew cooler, the light dimmer. At the bottom, a long room stretched out, rows of old consoles, metal crates, and broken screens covered in dust. Elias activated a nearby light. The bunker flickered to life, revealing weapons schematics pinned to the walls, faded blueprints, and shelves filled with abandoned equipment. This is incredible, Elias said. Stunned. A pre-collapse tactical lab. Saren walked to a console, brushing dust from its surface. This place holds secrets your world lost long ago. Before Elias could answer, a faint rumble echoed through the canyon above. Saren froze. They're here. Elias rushed to the entrance, peering out. Dark shapes moved along the canyon walls, tall figures, armored, silent. Their skin glowed faintly like Saren's, but their eyes were cold, sharp, predatory. The enemy had found them. We can't stay here, Elias whispered. Saren's gaze hardened. We must. This bunker has tools we can use to survive. Elias turned toward the old control panels. Then let's see what still works. Together, they moved quickly around the bunker, activating machinery and checking weapons. Some consoles sparked, some flickered, but others lit up fully alive after centuries of silence. Elias found a crate containing portable shield emitters. These still look good. Saren located a projection device that displayed old defense patterns. This can show their movements. Suddenly, a loud thud shook the bunker. Elias grabbed his carbine. They're trying to break in. Saren closed her eyes. 3 enemies at the door. More approaching from the upper ridge. We need a plan, Elias said. Saren opened her eyes again. You fight with human strength. I will fight with what little energy I have left. Elias glanced at her. She looked tired, her silver skin dimmer than usual, but her determination had not faded. "You're not fighting alone," he said. The door thudded again, harder this time. Dust rained from the ceiling. Elias activated 2 shield emitters, placing them near the entrance. Blue light shimmered into a protective barrier. As the enemy struck the door a 3rd time, it cracked open, and a tall, armored alien stepped inside, its eyes glowing with violent intensity. Elias fired first. The shot hit the creature's armor, staggering it. Saren raised her hands, sending a sudden gravity pulse that slammed the attacker into the wall. More enemies poured in behind the first, pushing through the shield barrier. Elias fired again and again, fighting with the precision of a soldier. Saren fought beside him, using her abilities to bend metal, shift stones, and disrupt their balance. But for every enemy they stopped, more appeared. "We cannot stay here," Saren shouted over the noise. Elias nodded, grabbing a portable generator and tossing it into the center of the room. "I'm going to overload this. It'll create a shockwave when it blows." Saren's eyes widened. "That could collapse the canyon." "Exactly," Elias replied. Saren gave a sharp nod. She trusted him. They ran toward the back exit of the bunker, climbing the narrow escape ladder. Behind them, the enemies closed in. The generator hummed louder and louder, glowing with unstable energy. As Elias and Saren reached the surface, a massive explosion shook the ground. The canyon walls trembled, then cascaded downward in a roaring avalanche, sealing the bunker and their pursuers beneath tons of stone. Dust rose into the air as silence returned to the desert. Saren leaned against a rock, breathing heavily. "We survived." Elias stood beside her, scanning the horizon. "For now." Saren looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with gratitude. "Without you, I would have been lost." Elias shook his head. "We survived because we worked together." Far in the distance, the settlement lay quiet under the afternoon sun, unaware of the battle that had taken place. But Elias and Saren knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The explosion in the canyon echoed for miles, shaking the desert like a distant thunder strike. Elias Ward and Saren Kavala stood on the ridge above the collapsed bunker, covered in dust and breathing hard. The enemy force had been crushed beneath tons of falling stone. But Elias knew that victory was only temporary. "They will send more," Saren whispered. "The faction that hunts me. They never stop." Elias nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Then we need to warn the settlement." Saren hesitated. "Your people already mistrust me. They may not listen." "They'll listen to me," he said firmly. "And when they see what's coming, they won't have a choice." They began the long walk back across the desert. The sun dipped lower, turning the dunes gold and casting long shadows behind them. Elias walked with steady determination, scanning the horizon every few minutes. Saren followed close, her steps slower, fatigue pulling at her movements. Using her abilities in the bunker had drained her energy. "You should rest," Elias said. "I am fine," she replied, though her voice wavered. "You don't look fine." Saren gave a faint smile. "Our bodies recover quickly after stress. I only need time." They continued for hours, until the settlement's outer towers appeared against the darkening sky. Smoke rose from several rooftops. Something was wrong. Elias stopped. "That's not normal." Saren closed her eyes and listened to the ground. "There is panic. Movement. Your people are preparing for battle." "Against who?" Elias whispered. "The ones that followed me." Elias felt a flare of anger, not at Saren, but at the hunters who dragged danger across the desert. "Then we don't have any time to waste." When they reached the settlement gate, 2 guards jumped in front of them, rifles raised. "Ward, what in blazes is going on? We heard explosions. And why is she with you?" "She's with me because she saved my life," Elias barked. "Now open the gate. We have information the council needs to hear." The guards exchanged nervous looks but obeyed. As Elias and Saren stepped inside, chaos rushed to meet them. People hurried between buildings, carrying supplies and weapons. Alarms blared from the central tower. Children cried. Animals panicked in their pens. Fear ruled the air. Elias headed straight to the town hall, pushing through the crowd. Inside, The settlement council was gathered around a holographic map, shouting over one another. "We have confirmed readings, unknown forces approaching from the east. We must evacuate." "No. We defend the colony." "What brought them here? Who? Why now?" Elias slammed his hand on the table. "Because they're hunting her." The room fell silent. Every eye turned to Saren as she stepped out from behind Elias. Her silver skin glowed dimly in the firelight, her face calm but resolute. The council leader, a gray-haired woman named Mara Keene, spoke first. "We warned settlers not to harbor refugees without registration. And now danger is at our door." "Saren didn't bring danger," Elias said sharply. "Danger followed her." "Big difference," the council murmured uneasily. Saren stepped forward. "I wish to speak." Mara frowned. "Very well. Explain why armed forces are crossing our desert." Saren bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect. "I am part of a house that carries ancient knowledge. Dangerous knowledge. A hostile faction believes this information must be controlled by force. They seek to silence me. Not your people. And if we hand you over?" someone muttered. Elias glared at them. "Then you sign her death sentence. And maybe your own. Because those hunters don't care about peace. They crush anything that stands in their path." The council room fell into a tense hush. Mara looked from Elias to Saren. "What do you suggest, then?" "We fight," Elias said. "But smart. Not reckless. Saren and I found an old bunker in the canyon, an ancient tactical lab. It held tech that can help us. I brought back 2 portable shield emitters and defensive schematics." He placed the devices on the table. Gasps spread through the room. Saren stepped beside him. "We know how these enemies fight, and together, we can defend your home." Mara studied them both carefully. "The settlement will not fall without a fight." "But Ward, are you sure this is worth risking everything?" Elias answered without hesitation. "Saving one innocent is always worth it." A heavy silence followed. Finally, Mara nodded. "Prepare the defenses." The council members scattered, barking orders. The last stand was about to begin. As dusk settled, the settlement transformed into a fortress. Shield emitters were placed at key entry points. Metal barricades lined the streets, civilians sheltered in underground rooms while volunteers armed themselves. Saren stood atop the main watchtower, her eyes glowing brighter than they had in days. Elias climbed the ladder and joined her. "You holding up?" he asked. "I am stronger than before," she said. "Fear focuses the mind." Elias chuckled softly. "Yeah, it really does." From the tower, they could see the desert stretching wide and dark. The wind picked up, sweeping across the sand with an unsettling hiss. Then Saren whispered, "They are near." Elias gripped his rifle. "How many?" "Dozens," she said. "Maybe more." A moment later, shapes emerged from the darkness, tall figures with glowing eyes and sharp armor. They moved in perfect silence, spreading across the dunes like shadows. The alarms blared. "Positions!" Elias shouted. Energy blasts lit the night as the settlement opened fire. Shield emitters crackled to life, forming blue domes of protection. The enemy struck them hard, bending them inward with brute force. Elias fired from the tower, hitting one attacker square in the chest. The creature staggered but kept coming. "They're tougher than before," Elias muttered. "These are elite hunters," Saren replied. "They will not stop." But neither would the settlers. The ground shook as the enemy charged. Barricades splintered. Explosions rocked the streets. Soldiers and volunteers fought side by side, defending their home with everything they had. Suddenly, a group of hunters leaped onto the tower base, climbing rapidly. "They're coming up!" Elias shouted. Saren raised her hands. The blue lines under her skin glowed fiercely. With a deep breath, she sent out a gravitational shockwave that rippled across the tower. The attackers were thrown back, crashing into the sand below. But the effort drained her. She stumbled. Elias caught her. "Hey, don't push yourself too hard." "I must," she said, breathing heavily. "The pact bond. I promised to protect you." "You already have," Elias said softly. Now let's protect everyone else. Below, the battle raged. The enemy breached one of the shield lines. Settlers scrambled as hunters stormed the main square. Elias grabbed Saren's arm. We need to get down there. Together, they climbed down the tower and ran toward the chaos. Elias fired at incoming attackers, providing cover for civilians. Saren used precise gravity pulses to knock enemies off balance or hurl stones at their armor. Despite the danger, the settlers fought bravely. But the enemy kept advancing. Finally, as dawn approached, the hunter's leader stepped forward, a towering figure with dark armor etched in red lines. His voice was deep and cold. Saren Kavala, surrender the knowledge, end this. Saren stepped forward beside Elias. Her voice, though tired, was strong. I will not. The leader raised his weapon. Before he could fire, Marakeen shouted from behind a barricade. All units fire. A wave of energy blasts struck the leader. Elias fired too, hitting a weak point in the armor. The leader staggered, then fell to one knee. Saren gathered the last of her strength. She raised both hands. Blue light bursting from her palms, a massive gravity shockwave erupted. The enemy leader was thrown backward, crashing into the sand. The remaining hunters broke formation, retreating into the desert like scattered shadows. Silence fell. The settlement had won. When the sun finally rose, its warm light washed over broken barricades, tired faces, and a settlement still standing. People cheered weakly, embracing one another. For the first time in days, hope filled the air. Mara approached Elias and Saren. You saved us, she said. Both of you. Elias shook his head. We all saved each other. Mara smiled. Saren Kavala, the council grants you full asylum. You are welcome here, as long as you wish to stay. Saren bowed deeply, her eyes glowing with emotion. Thank you. I will honor this trust. Elias stood beside her, arms crossed. Looks like you won't need that pact bond anymore. Saren smiled softly. Perhaps not. But its meaning remains. It brought us together. It kept us alive. Elias nodded. And now? Now, Saren said, looking at the busy settlement around them. I stay because I choose to. Not from duty, but from trust. Elias smiled. Then welcome home. The desert wind carried their words away. And as dawn spread across the horizon, the strange alliance that began as a desperate plea had grown into something far greater. A bond of courage. A bond of survival. A bond that changed a world.